Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Italian Open catch up,
Sinner strolls into quarterfinals on suspension return,
defending champion Swiatek stumbles out to Collins.
and Novak Djokovic takes a wild card into Geneva ahead of the French Open.
Chris, today is the 12th of May, and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ, brought to you by Sports Travel and Hospitality Group. We're at the midway point in Rome for the Italian Open, where Jannik Sinner has returned from suspension in consummate ease, moving into the quarterfinals unscathed. However, it has not been as plain sailing for Iga Swiatek, whose indifferent form this season has continued, falling to defeat at the hands of Danielle Collins. Away from Rome, Novak Djokovic has taken a wild card for Geneva ahead of the French Open, whilst his co-founded Players Union, the PTPA, claimed a victory over the ATP this week in their ongoing legal battle. The BJK Cup Finals draw in Shenzhen was also unveiled today, so we'll be getting into that in the second half, as well as previewing week 2 out in Rome. Chris, it's been a whirlwind week on the tour, and that's mainly due to one thing, I would say. It's the world #1 back in action.
I thought you were going to go back to the Pope then.
Yes.
There's a new man on top in many ways, but I think that was it's been quite the return. We don't often get these sorts of weeks where all world media is focused on tennis and in Rome and everything's happening. It certainly has been the spotlight on the Italian capital.
Who is bigger, Jannik Sinner or Rome? Jannik Sinner or the Pope?
Oh, I think more people have asked me about the Pope than Jannik Sinner this week. So I'd say maybe that's a bit bigger, but I think it makes for a very interesting time. I mean, a lot of people, I saw Morgan Riddle. She was actually in the Vatican when the new Pope was announced, and she ran to go and see what was happening. And there was that announcement on court. So it's been worlds colliding, Joel.
Yes, indeed. We're going to be talking about Jannik Sinner returning. Carlos Alcaraz has also returned, which we're going to be getting into. Jack Draper could reach the top 4 as well, with Taylor Fritz going early. It's all going on. It's all been going on in week 1. Coco Gauff looks very good as well. So yeah, lots and lots to talk about. And it's funny you mentioned the Pope, because it is what caught my attention this week, because Pope Leo, the new Pope, he's an American, and it turns out he is a big tennis fan. So maybe worlds are colliding for the right reason, because he's been quoted as saying, "I consider myself an amateur player." And there's actually a tennis court in the Vatican City. I didn't realize this, but there was an article in the New York Times that was actually talking about the kind of the Vatican's love for tennis. And there apparently back in the day used to be a lively tennis scene with cardinals competing in a tournament against each other. That's just fascinating. And again, it opens up that sort of secrecy that I feel like we just have no idea what goes on in the Vatican. Is the conclave just like code for just a big tennis tournament? Is it the conclave 250?
Or might be the conclave slam. I mean, they play it out on the tennis court for a chance to wear the big hat.
Oh,
I mean,
yes. Maybe that's why Pope Leo got the nod.
it's a very different sort of tennis film that would be. But I mean, I did watch Conclave yesterday, and I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of it. I think I prefer if there was a bit more tennis in it, potentially. I think it would be maybe a bit more realistic. But I mean, I also found out something else about that, Joel, because I thought that this wasn't true, but he said he really likes Carlos Alcaraz. Apparently, that was his favorite player. So I think that's quite interesting that he is not.
Hang on Netflix. I feel like Netflix's ears are already pricking up. Are we going to possibly get kind of Pope Leo versus Carlos Alcaraz in the Pope Slam?
Oh, that would be quite something. They'd have to play together, probably in a charity match.
Oh, doubles.
They could do something very good, Yannick, and then we have to find someone else who's a force for good potentially. But yeah, he said he used to play a lot more when he lived in Peru, so he's maybe a clay court specialist, is what I'm getting from that.
He knows the golden swing. He knows the golden swing.
And maybe Leo will be available for my next tennis holiday. He can go to the Rafa Academy with me, and we can improve, get back into it, But he might be too busy for that. But having said that, there was also some other famous faces in Rome. And actually someone who is a Copenhagen resident like myself, Lily Collins, Phil Collins' daughter, but also of Emily in Paris fame. She is actually filming. This is confusing, listeners. Emily in Paris is filming in Rome this season. Don't
Wait,
look for
what?
logic. That's apparently happening. And she went to go and cheer on Holger Rune because she lives in Denmark when she's not filming Emily in Paris. So
Ah.
she actually went to not probably not the best match because it was about 4 hours and
Oh,
he
the
did
Mute
lose
match.
to Mute. Yeah, I can't imagine she was there for the
I was going to
entirety.
say that I saw the result. It was like 3 hours 42 minutes. Must have been one of the longest matches on tour this season.
Yeah, maybe she's just a really big tennis fan, but I think maybe she thought he'd win quite quickly and then she could get back to filming. But either way, the world's
Worlds are
attention
colliding.
are in Rome.
The
Yes,
Pope world is colliding. The movie world is colliding.
definitely the Netflix world.
The Netflix world is quite. We're gonna have to keep an eye on that because I do think there is crossover, unexpected crossover opportunity there. Netflix, yeah, the Pope and Carlos
Alcaraz in the
Alcaraz in a
Vatican.
doubles match.
We need to
Yeah,
see it. If he wins,
Vatican
that would.
City tennis
If he wins,
match.
that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, be lovely. Be
Yeah.
lovely. Jannik Sinner on the other side of the court with an unnamed partner.
Unnamed cardinal.
Yeah, unnamed cardinal. Who knows?
This episode is brought to you by Sports Travel and Hospitality Group.
The leading provider of travel, hospitality, and customer experiences at global sporting events, including this year's Roland-Garros.
By booking with Sports Travel and Hospitality Group, tennis fans around the world can witness the pinnacle of the clay court season unfold, all the while indulging in luxurious hospitality that only Roland-Garros can provide.
As an official agent of Roland-Garros, Sports Travel and Hospitality Group guarantees you unrivaled views from the best seats in the house on Philippe Chatrier, as well as world-class cuisine and beverages served on site.
With Sports Travel and Hospitality Group, you also have access to the matches of your choosing, with 3 package tiers available across the entire tournament.
Learn more and book your Roland-Garros hospitality package today at sportstravelhospitality.com/Roland-Garros. That's sportstravelhospitality.com/Roland-Garros.
So what are you waiting for? Secure your premium seat at Roland-Garros today for a once-in-a-lifetime Grand Slam tennis experience.
The link is in the description. Right, let's get into it. Let's start on the ATP side because we are arriving into week 2 in Rome for the Italian Open. So let's look back on all the action on the ATP side of things in week 1, and we have to start. I know we've just sort of jokingly spoken about Jannik Sinner over the last kind of 5 minutes or so, but we need to talk now about the Sinner return because he's into the quarterfinals, had a nice win today against lucky loser Jesper de Jong. Started off again with a comfortable victory against Mariano Navoni. But Chris, the big picture is here. There's been a lot of talk over the last few months whilst he's been serving out this suspension. The time for talking was over when he came back onto the court in Rome. What were your feelings, or what were you looking out for when he was stepping back onto the court, and how did you feel?
I was expecting him to play well, obviously, but I was also thinking with the time he had off, physically, he did look stronger. And I think when you probably have more time for some strength and conditioning, he looked a bit sort of a bit thicker in terms of muscles. I think he maybe has added a bit of muscle there. We know that strength and conditioning wasn't always necessarily his forte prior to his ascent to world #1. Physically, there were issues. So I think it's been quite interesting to see that he does look a bit more sturdy. So that was a key takeout for me. I think he's hitting the ball as well as ever. I think it's probably just a few nerves in that first match. It wasn't the best match I've ever seen from him, but he doesn't have to be. He's winning pretty comfortably. He's looking good. He's getting it done. And I think that's probably all he'd want to do at this stage until he gets to the latter end of the tournament. But I mean, impressions from my side would be he's picked up pretty much where he left off. I think the serve could be a little bit better. I was a bit surprised that potentially he wasn't necessarily playing as well and he wasn't taking as many break points. But I mean, you need match practice and he hasn't had much of it. So I would say I was impressed, but I think there's room to improve.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because it feels like the next match is the big test, or the first big test, because he's got Francisco Cerundolo, who is one of the star performers this season. He's already got 26 wins in 2025. Great clay court player as well. The level that Sinner is at, do you feel like he's going to need to up it a little bit for someone like Cerundolo, who's been playing so well this season?
I think he will have to up it. I also think that Cerundolo is somebody who does have a little bit of a tendency not necessarily to close out the matches. And I think it might be a bit dicey at times. There could be a set that would go away from the world number one, but I do think that Sinner would still be the favourite going into that. I think, especially playing in Rome, I mean, we can't ignore it. I think, although we weren't necessarily celebrating in the way that some of his sponsors were celebrating him returning, the Italians were certainly rejoicing.
I know. Yes.
And that's going to have a big impact on the matches there because he really is feeling the love out there. And Cerundolo...
What did you make of like the fans' reaction? It was a packed court. To me, it didn't feel like there were really any jeers, and I don't feel like that's really too surprising because he is at home. But does it sort of add to this kind of feeling that like nothing happened, nothing has changed, and we're sort of back really to just sort of carrying on from where Jannik Sinner left off?
I mean, I don't think lessons necessarily have been learned. I think even in the press conferences, he said he was pleased he didn't miss a Grand Slam, and I think it's probably like it just didn't really feel like he was banned. It felt like he was just taking a break from injury. I think that's also the lack of awareness from not just tennis fans, but also from wider tennis fans that maybe occasionally dabble in the sport. They're definitely not aware of what's been going on. So I don't think that necessarily the legacy of this will be too great. I think people will move on. I think people do want to move on because it has just exposed the uncomfortable truths that the doping system is, well, supposed to prevent doping, is actually very much not robust, and there's lots of problems with it and lots of areas that need to improve, especially when it comes to preferential treatment and transparency. So I think people were just celebrating the fact the world number one is back on a tennis court. All the best players in the world, apart from Novak Djokovic, are in Rome, and I think that's something that we have missed in terms of the level of tennis. And the fact that we might get some of these really big contests again, because we have been spoiled over the last decades of Nadal and Federer and Djokovic and Murray. And when you do lose some star power, the tournament and the tour does suffer.
I agree. I think, just look, I say the pictures we saw, and even on his like practice sessions, it tennis needs Jannik Sinner, whether you like it or not, because he just generates such a buzz. And you think about that rivalry with Carlos Alcaraz, that is box office as well. That is going to attract people into the sport.
Big money, Joel. He's a big money player.
Yeah, exactly. And just his level on the court as well. It is, his natural talent is beautiful. I mean, he's 60-0 against players outside the top 20 since the start of the 2023 US Open. He's just kind of picking up where he's
we should be looking then, Joel, shouldn't we? So where is Cerundolo ranked at the moment?
I know.
Could there be a chance inside?
He's number 8 in the race at the moment.
He's number 18 in the rankings. So there could be a chance there. But I mean, it is also one of those things where tennis is always in the news, but especially now, and I think it's added to the drama. And I think a lot of people do enjoy the drama of tennis. So we might not enjoy the nature of this drama, but it certainly is.
We don't get it in Hawkeye and Self. Well, actually, we do.
We do actually. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We don't get it all the time when we're in. Actually a lot of drama. Geneva is going to have drama with Djokovic there. Maybe the stakes have just got higher, especially with likes of, Alcaraz back on the court as well, Joel.
Yes. Well, yeah, Alcaraz is back on the court. Arguably went a little bit under the radar, I think, because
he was away longer than Sinner, no?
Yes, because of Jannik Sinner. He had an abductor injury, so he missed Madrid, but he's back now. Had a nice win last night against Laszlo Djere, 7-6, 6-2. Started off a little bit scratchily, a little bit iffy, but I think he was very relieved to come through in 2 sets. I think there were a couple of physical issues as well for Djere. But what did you make of Carlos Alcaraz on his return? I didn't realise this. This is his first time, for all his clay court prowess, this is the first time he has reached the round of 16 at the Italian Open.
I mean, that really is surprising when you think about it. I mean, I would have thought he would have gone much deeper here, but you do get some quite strange results. I mean, Medvedev's won here, so maybe there is something to the fact that people tend to peak in one and not both, and maybe he had been prioritizing Madrid previously. I'm not sure, as I know he has missed it a couple of times, but I mean, he's back. I think he's probably a little bit tentative on the clay at the moment. I don't think it's been the most convincing of returns, but I think it's about getting yourself to some of the latter stage of the tournament. He is looking, I mean, Joel, we've talked about many different types of sleeve, the knee sleeve. He is sleeved up. Do we think that that is more of a medical necessity, or is it a style choice, or do you think that it is actually helping his confidence out there with his injury?
I think it's helping his confidence. I think he probably is a little bit tentative at the moment, a little bit wary with the French Open coming up, just almost kind of wants to kind of get through Rome unscathed. So I think it's more of maybe, or hopefully I'm saying this as a,
Peace
as a
of mind, Joel.
precautionary thing. Exactly. But yes, I mean, interestingly, he plays Karen Khachanov next. And if he defeats Khachanov, he will have made the quarterfinals of every big event on tour. So Grand Slams, Masters 1000s, ATP finals. At his age, that is.
Oh, it took him a while, didn't it?
impressive.
I mean, what was he playing at all these years?
I know. So yeah, good for Carlos Alcaraz. We'll have to see how he progresses. Dare I say, could we get an unexpected Sinner-Alcaraz matchup in Rome? I'm not going to put it on anyone's lips.
Well, we didn't predict that, Joel.
We didn't predict it.
It probably will happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
It probably will happen. Just elsewhere, Jack Draper, he is also still in. He had a nice win yesterday against Vit Kopriva, the Czech player, 6-4, 6-3. Interestingly, I think he can reach number 4 and be 4th seeded for the French Open because Taylor Fritz has gone out early in Rome. But one thing, Chris, I wanted to bring up, in that match against Kopriva, he obliterated his racket and afterwards talked about the fact that in an interview with Sky Sports, when I get out of bed, I feel so angry some days, and I've got to play a tennis match and I've got to lose points, so I've got to go through those emotional ups and downs. Is there anything to read into that racket smash in terms of the rankings, how he's gone up the rankings, and maybe the extra pressure that he's feeling?
I mean, we can all relate to the fact that you do have those days where you're not in the best of moods. I think tennis has got a lot more serious for him. I think that's what that quote really tells me. Is before, I think he didn't necessarily have those levels of expectations for himself. I think he expects to play at a very, very high level now, because when he did smash that racket, he was up a set and a break. And normally you're not seeing people smash rackets at that point. That's quite unusual behavior. So I would say it's probably cause for a little bit of concern, because you do want to keep a little bit more balanced in those moments. And I don't think he needed to lift his game particularly. But I mean, he's got to lose points. You're going to have to lose a lot of points some days. You're going to lose more than you win. And I'm sure that he'll have to try and find a way to deal with that. And I dealt with that very well in Madrid, where he said, that it actually means I've got more work to do. I'm looking forward to doing that work. So we all lose our temper sometimes. I don't like all the swearing, though. I think he sometimes is a little bit too much in the Andy Murray school of thought in terms of letting it all out. It's not always the most elegant displays that we see from him. But he does still seem to be, trying to manage his own expectations for himself. And it is a very big year of change for him. So hopefully he can get his emotions in check as well.
Yeah, I think the positive thing was just kind of getting through. I mean, he had 24 unforced errors on his forehand. So to come through with a straight sets victory, regardless of who your opponent is and who their ranking is, I think he'll be very happy with that. And as you said, room for improvement indeed. We'll see how he continues into week 2. And one player who also maybe is feeling the pressure, Alexander Zverev, Chris, he was caught in interview basically saying to an interviewer, you've asked a really stupid question, because they asked, you've had a couple of early exits in the Masters this year, so how nice is it to get one under your belt here? And yeah, as I said, Zverev was not happy with how this was framed, said it was a silly, stupid question to the interviewer. Does that show to you that, we spoke about the rankings and pressure? Is that where that came from with Zverev? Was he even right to kind of call out the interviewer in that respect?
I mean, the man has an ego. I think that's undeniable, the way that he kind of rose to that question, because that is what journalists are doing. That is what journalists will always be doing if they want to.
They're going to prod.
They're going to prod. They're going to try and get a story out of you. And if you have won and it was not a particularly entertaining match, they're going to say, well, you're finally winning some matches. And the other side of it is, if you're not winning, they're going to say, well, why didn't you win that? You're not winning any matches. So that it's never going to be a case that everyone's always praising you. And I think that you have to have a bit of thicker skin, because He hasn't been winning matches at the big tournaments after the Australian Open. He lost in his first match, not the first round, sorry. In Indian Wells, in Miami, he made the round of 16. Monte Carlo, he went out in his first match that he played there. And then in Madrid, it was an early exit as well. He did win 2 matches before he went out.
But he did win Munich. He wanted to make sure that was
he did that, but that was not a 1,000. That was not a big tournament.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a case that he rose to it too much. I think he doesn't necessarily win himself any more fans with that, because it wasn't a stupid question. He just took exception to the question. So you could say, yes, I am pleased I'm winning some more matches here. I've shown that I can win titles, but I'd like to get some more matches. That's all you have to say. It's not that hard. And if you do get tired of those questions, well, I mean, probably think of a better way to answer them.
Yes, and I did enjoy, because Casper Ruud was in a similar rut earlier in the year, and in Miami, very similar kind of comment from an interviewer talking about the fact that he just won his first back-to-back matches in a Masters in 11 months. And, I guess in some regard, he could have got shirty a little bit like Alexander Zverev. But no, Casper Ruud, Mr. Nice Guy on the ATP Tour, said, no, it's my own fault for losing so much.
That's so
that's
fun.
The Scandinavian approach.
Well, I mean, he's very much aware of those things, I think, in terms of he's very composed. I think he's understands where he is. He's an open book, isn't he? He talked about some of the struggles he had from a mental health perspective as well, and that's definitely not the school of thought that Zverev is in. So maybe we should all take a leaf out of Casper's book, and when we respond to people, we should just take it for what it is, and maybe don't think that everyone's coming after you.
Well, one player who is not in Rome is Novak Djokovic, and we've heard that he is going to be taking a wild card into the Geneva Open, which starts on the 18th of May. Chris, this is an ATP 250 event. He's played it before. What do you make of this news and the fact that he has decided to play in the immediate build-up to the French Open? His record this year is 12-7. Yeah, what's your reaction to this news? The fact that Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest of all time, is going to be playing a 250 build-up in Geneva.
Well, I mean, we probably fall foul a little bit to the sort of question that we just mentioned about Zverev, because we did use a thumbnail that said Novak needs a win. He does need wins, and I think that's so true, that he needs to get some match practice in prior to the French. He needs to get that confidence up. It doesn't mean he's not going to win. He did win on the clay last year at the Olympics. But this is the sort of announcement that was a hot topic last week when we said, should more people drop down a la Naomi Osaka and maybe get some great practice in? And I think we're seeing more players doing that now, and especially kind of in the run up to slams. It's not that unusual for players to do this just before if they want to get some more.
Do you think we see it more on the women's side than the men's side?
I think the men tend to have contractual obligations which they stick to from a preparation perspective. I think you might see a few more players take some last minute wildcards for the women's side. Like there's a couple of 1-2-5s next week. Yeah. I think we'll get some wildcards probably going to Strasbourg, but I do think that more traditionally the top players on the men's side are set up so that they're able to get the best preparation. So this is an addition to the schedule. It's not ideal to play the week before a slam. A lot of people don't like doing that. So I think this is quite abnormal for Djokovic, but at the same time, in the situation that he's in...
It's abnormal times.
Yeah, we're in abnormal times for Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, he's dropped out of the top 5. So if it really does feel like any way to get some match practice
is this title 100, Joel?
I don't want it to secretly.
Will he play the whole tournament? A lot of players do that as well. They get a few matches, then they head to Paris.
The Naomi Osaka approach.
He does love doing that, yeah. But
yeah, do you know, there is a part of... I did wonder about this because I secretly don't want this to be his 100th title.
Where would you like it to be?
I mean, for his sake, I'd like it to be, I guess, at a Grand Slam or a Masters 1000 event. Having said that, the reality is at the moment he's just not playing good enough tennis for that to happen. But it just feels a little bit kind of underwhelming, I think.
Anticlimactic if this was, yeah.
I mean, if I'm the Geneva Open tournament organizer...
I'm getting stressed. This needs to be a ceremony.
Yeah, I'm like, that is a great PR opportunity potentially for my tournament to have its legacy, on the tour cemented. But from Novak Djokovic's point of view, from my point of view, I'm just like, oh, I'm not. I know a tournament is a tournament, and sometimes these statistics don't mean anything, but for something this significant,
I'm sure he'd take it though.
he would take.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, yes. But that does remind me, though. I think I did want to investigate a little bit. Once, if he does reach that 100 landmark of the big three, what is that composite of the types of tournaments that they have won?
Oh,
Grand Slam versus 1,000 versus 500 versus
surfaces
250
as well. That could be very interesting. Yeah.
So maybe some follow up investigation is required.
Yeah, and if who finished on a big title, we can also look at as well. The last title of the greats, that could be particularly interesting.
Right, let's move on to the WTA catch-up in Rome, because there was lots of action again. Similarly, with the women out in Italy. And yes, Chris, we got to start once again. I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse here, but like throughout the clay season, when we come to this part of the show, because Iga Swiatek is out. Defending champion is out. She lost to Danielle Collins, who actually lost today, I believe, to Lena Svitolina. But Collins defeated Swiatek 6-1, 7-5. And for me, the difference here is that this is more like the first time she's gone out properly early on in a tournament. It feels like before she was losing, but she was winning and then maybe getting to a quarterfinal or a semi-final and then being defeated. But here, going out early, going out in week one, things are not looking good for Iga Swiatek and her French Open title defense.
They're not looking good. I think that's probably the best way of describing it. It's not the sort of preparation she's had previously, and we did talk about this last time, but I mean, she's won a round in Stuttgart, in Madrid. She did make the semi-finals, and now she's just won one round in a tournament that she's won, I think, 3 times. So it really is unusual.
Is this the most damning result of the season so far, given the performances she's put in here at the past, the time, as you said, the times that she's won it, and what's happening now?
I still think the loss to Coco Gauff last week was really concerning, because that's not what really happens to Iga Swiatek on a tennis court. Whereas you do think some of the players she's faced this clay court season, there are some other things at work there. Like there's the Ostapenko curse that she has in Stuttgart, indoor clay. I mean, Ostapenko, that's a pretty good surface for her. She does have a mastery over Iga. And then the Danielle Collins, they're 2 players, but there's not a lot of love lost between them. So I think there could be some of those sort of personal rivalries where maybe Danielle Collins was particularly fired up after what happened in Paris last year, and she doesn't always get the better of Iga. So I think the Coco Gauff result, 6-1, 6-1, that was an annihilation. But I mean, it's such a different scenario to be going into when she'd won both Madrid and Rome going into Paris last year, which she also won. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what will happen. I do think we're going to see changes in the team, and people are talking about, will it be before, after Paris? I think you probably have to stick with your team for now. I think that's probably what you'd have to do. I do think it's a really tricky one when it comes to what you should do next after that. But I guess you don't want to think about it, do you, at this stage? What
changes would you like to see? Because I've seen talk about, Wim Fissette as a head coach, a sports psychologist, Daria, and that I think there's debate around how big of an upheaval is it of her team? Could you, those are 2 pretty core components. Can you go so drastic and remove both of them at the same time, or do you think there is it needs to be a more measured approach if it were to happen?
I think it's very hard to know. I think probably she's not going to get rid of her very close companion in Daria. I think that probably wouldn't happen at this stage. I think irrespective of what you were dealing with, I think getting rid of your sports psychologist, who was also very much part of your inner circle and has been there with you for kind of the whole time you've had the success, would not be the move. I think Wim Fissette will need to go almost irrespective of what happens in Paris. I think if she does win in Paris, I don't think it's because of anything that he would have done in between. I think it's because what's happening between her ears has been sorted out, because we know she has the game to do amazing things. So I think that's probably what will happen. Having said that, I don't think we've really been in a situation where we've seen a player this out of form who is normally so good and so dominant at a Grand Slam. I think you just have to hope that it isn't a case that everything, falls apart in Paris. I think you'd want her to put in a great showing. I think it is just a very, very surprising thing that this has happened. And there were talks about the grass, Joel. I think there's an update there that she will be playing on the grass. And that was, don't believe everything we read, especially when she said there was this Polish publication that did have these rumors. But do you think that maybe that's a good move of not taking the time off and heading straight to grass? She says she wants to improve her grass court game.
Yeah. I think it's, I personally still think I personally think a break would be better. So I'm not sure. Even if it's like a week or two off, and maybe play just one lead up event for Wimbledon, I think would be maybe the best approach. But certainly I think she needs to take one tournament at a time at the moment. And she's dropping to 4th in the rankings. That's her lowest since March 2022. And you spoke about last season how she won the tournaments in the build up to the French Open, carrying on that great form. Do you see her as a player who can go into a Grand Slam cold, as it were? I'm thinking like a Rafa situation at the Australian Open when he won against Daniel Medvedev. Do you see her as a player who can just come in cold and win a tournament just based on how good her natural ability is?
I think she has had tournaments which she's won where she has had to find form, and there's been a turning point in that tournament. I think she was down and out against Naomi Osaka and she won the French last year. I think there's also been a case that, I think she lost a set against Yul Niemeyer the year that she won, or made a really deep run at the US Open. And it just makes me think that she needs that turning point match where something switches and she's like, you know what, I've got this. And I think it sometimes it comes out of nowhere, and one match can turn around your season. We've seen players who've been match point down. Angie Kerber, I think she won Wimbledon from match point down as well. These stories do happen. And I think last year, that result against Osaka, I think she will take a lot of confidence in that result going into Roland-Garros, but it just depends on where her head is at. If she is able to take the pressure at this stage, there is so much pressure on these players' shoulders, and I think that's where you think if it isn't necessarily the place you want to be, then probably do take some time away from the court.
Yeah, and also the draw, I guess she gets dealt, because I was reading today, because of Danielle Collins has lost to Lena Svitolina, she's going to be unseeded at the French Open.
Well, you don't want that name, do you?
Could we get a Collins Swiatek rematch in the first round? Who knows? But that would be absolutely box office. Just to note as well, I mean, she has now had 9 defeats this season. That is the total amount she had all of last season, just to give you an idea of just where her game is at. And it will be interesting to see what happens. I certainly feel like at the moment her serve is just so vulnerable to those big hitters.
It's
Collins,
giving ITF,
Gauff.
Isn't it? It's not giving main tour.
It's odd because the reports I've been reading, it sounds like this has been a focus area for her and Wim Fissette, and I have no doubt they've been trying to work on her serve, but at the same time it feels like, as a fan watching it on TV, it's regressed a little bit.
The serve is the bit that goes, though. When you're stressed, when you get tensed in the arm, that's the shot you don't go for. It's the shot that you don't hit on the second serve. You kind of just put it into the box and hope your opponent misses. And that's not how Iga Swiatek plays tennis. She took more risks with her second serve. She was doing more with it. So I do think that is a problem, and tends to be when the serve is gone. You're not going to do that well at tournaments. So I think that's why Coco, the serve is on right now. Yeah. She's playing great. And she's able to kind of get those 3 points to give you that confidence. It can really get you on a roll, because she did steamroll past Emma Raducanu today, which was pretty impressive.
And she's going to be the number 2 seed at the French Open. We were coming into this event thinking, is it going to be Swiatek? Is it going to be Gauff? Is
Pegula?
It going to be Pegula? It's going to be Coco Gauff. And, she had a very comfortable win against Emma Raducanu, who's had a good time out in Rome. But just on Coco Gauff, do you see her now as with every match, do you feel like she is the main challenger to Aryna Sabalenka, and rather than as part of the chasing pack, is she just kind of in her own world at the moment as the kind of the second best player on clay, do you think, or do you still think there's work to do?
Well, I mean, her French Open results speak for themselves. She's not lost before the quarterfinals since 2020, and that was when she made her main draw debut. So she's had a quarterfinal, a final, a quarterfinal, and a semi-final. So she really does have her best results of any slam are at the French Open. I think her movement is particularly brilliant on that surface. I think Raducanu struggled to get the ball past her, and I think a lot of those balls that you think would be getting the job done, they are coming back. So French Open wise, I do think she is probably the second favourite, if we want to say. I think, if Djokovic had been in the same form as Iga Swiatek, we probably would say he's still the favourite. But it feels different, and it feels like Coco Gauff's on the ascendancy. And I think there could be a really good chance for her to make another final, or at least emulate that semi-final that she got last year.
Yeah, it feels like Iga Swiatek's loss in form is Coco Gauff's gain at the moment. Just before we move on, Chris, just on Swiatek, there are a couple of tournaments between now and the French Open, Strasbourg 500, Rabat as well, the 250 out in Monaco, in Morocco.
Wow, I've not been to Rabat, Monaco.
What do you think? What do you do if you're Iga Swiatek? Do you cut your losses and go straight to Paris, or do you do a Djokovic and go play a lead up tournament?
Oh, I would play a tournament.
Ooh, okay.
I think I would go for the smaller tournament, to be honest. I think that might be the move. I'd not necessarily go for the 500. I think now it's about the confidence game. It's not about the ranking points or anything like that. It's like clear the mind. And maybe getting into Paris wouldn't necessarily clear the mind. I think it might just add to the pressure cooker that is, the warm up to a Grand Slam potentially. But I mean, we will see. I think time will tell.
Yeah. And just finally, a nice story to end on. Martha Kostyuk versus Daria Kasatkina in week 1 in Rome had a really nice ending, Chris, because there was a handshake between Kostyuk and Kasatkina. Now, there is Ukraine have a long-standing policy on no handshakes with Russian and Belarusian players, but they shook hands, and there were some really nice messages coming out from Kostyuk around, seeing actions from Kasatkina and that demanding and deserving respect. So it was a really nice moment between the two, wasn't it?
It was nice, and I think there are times when we've seen people not shake hands of people who have shifted nationalities. Because there haven't been statements that have been put out, but I think that you cannot say that for Kasatkina because she's lost everything really by saying what she has, being so publicly outspoken on the war, as well as being kind of very critical of the laws on the LGBTQ plus community and what it's like to be in that community in Russia. So she couldn't do more really in terms of using her platform in a positive way. And now she has found a new home in Australia. I think not shaking their hands would be a really poor move. So it's nice to see that people are able to unite, and it doesn't have to be about what the flag is next to you. It's also about what you say, and your words have meaning. And I think that Kostyuk has taken that on board here.
Yeah, really, really nice moment to see. And finally, sorry, I have to get this in. I wanted to say Naomi Osaka is back. She had a really tough defeat today against Peyton Stearns.
Oh, I thought she was going to get it.
Probably should have won it, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But Peyton Stearns in that decider was rock solid. Saved 6 of 8 break points. But just going back to your point earlier, just again, promising showing given a player who dropped down to play a WTA 125, played well, won her first title in 4 years, and then sort of backs it up at the top level again, getting to second week. Very, very, very promising.
Very promising. And I think you said you'll see how it goes in Rome before you did use the term Clay-Sarka. So I think if she'd have got this one, we probably could have used it without kind of a caveat. So
can we use Bianca Klaydrescu now that she also defeated Raducanu in a reversal from Madrid?
She did. She turned that one around, that score. That was very impressive. So I was also thinking, it's been such a long time since we've seen those two in the latter stages of tournaments.
I know. It's unfamiliar.
It is. And then Now, I mean, I'm hoping that someone makes a deep run. I think Andreescu's on court now. I think she lost the first set to Quinn Wenjing, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, comeback week on tour.
Right, we're going to take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half where we will be discussing the Billie Jean King Cup Finals draw released in Shenzhen, including who Great Britain will face, the PTPA getting one over the ATP in their ongoing legal challenge against the tennis governing bodies, and we look ahead to week 2 of the Italian Open in Rome. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, brought to you by Sports Travel and Hospitality Group, and it's time to come back to another game. And I'm in the hot seat. I think, Chris, you have got a par for the courts for me.
Yes, you are in the hot seat. You can't escape. Kim is not here. No one will help
no one
you.
help.
No.
Wait, I need to phone a friend. Where's Kim?
Well, she might answer the phone. I'm not sure if she's busy right this minute. We can see.
She's getting excited for Eurovision.
She is. Yeah, she's flown out. No, she hasn't, listeners. But we're doing our traditional par for the courts. It's been a while.
Okay.
I will be setting a par, and I think probably this is not the most inventive of all topics, but I think we do need to, take it down a notch from what's happened so far in the game this month, and we're going to stick with the theme of champions in Rome.
Ooh.
We're going to look at champions in Rome on the women's side since 2010. So that is the category. I think this could be not too difficult. I believe there are 8. There are 8 or 8 that I have written down here on my list. And I'm going to set par at, I think 5 I'd be very impressed with you for. But if you get 4, par is 4. 5,
okay.
And you get serious bragging rights.
Do I get a life?
Okay, 1 life, par 5. That's
okay, right. I'm nervous.
And if you get one answer that's so obscure, you get 3 points.
Okay. Well, Iga Swiatek.
I'll give you that one.
Okay. Right. I'm off to a
blinder.
Blinder, yeah, already. I'm trying to think, did Serena Williams or Ash
It's 2010.
Surely Ash Barty won.
Maybe par 4.
Or Halep? I'm going to go Simona Halep.
Simona Halep's a correct answer.
Okay. We're in business. Did Pliskova win it? Or did she?
Gonna have to push you.
Okay, Karolina Pliskova.
That is a fantastic answer, Joel.
Is it right?
Yes, you've now got
Wow.
3 answers, and I'm not sure thought you'd get those 3.
Right. I'm gonna say now. I'm lost for words now. I'm gonna say. Victoria Azarenka.
Victoria Azarenka did not win Rome. So you've lost a life there.
Okay.
You need 1 more for it to be an acceptable result, and 2 more to be able to call up Kim and tell her.
I'm not sure. Did Ash Barty? I keep coming back to Ash Barty, but I don't know. Did Serena post 2010? Maybe.
We're going to have to speed up this section.
Okay,
Joel,
I'm going to go Serena Williams.
Serena Williams is the correct answer. She's won it 4 times. Not 4 times since 2010, but 4 times total.
Come on. Okay. And now I'm
on bonus time.
Safina.
She did, but before then, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that's it. I'm out.
well, I mean, some of the names you could have had, Raducanu did win it in 2023. That was the
Mm.
very wet year where everyone retired against her. We also had Svitolina, two times champion, 2017, 2018.
Yes.
Pliskova was a fantastic guess. That was a great one. She did also get double bageled in the final. So she did win it one year as well.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. I was like, hang on, didn't she get double bageled? But anyway.
Exactly. And then Maria Sharapova won it three times, which I had almost
Ah.
forgotten the three times there. And then I'm hoping this was the first answer that Kim will text us when she listens to this. Maria Jose Martinez Sanchez.
Wow.
What a blast from the past. She had that sort of fantastic, sort of shaggy, sort of blonde, dip dyed sort of hair. She won it, and that was the year that she reached her career high of number 19 in 2010. So a very, very quite a short list of winners there. But at the same time, Joel, I think you can pass. I give you a tick.
Come on.
It
Oh,
was
yes.
because you did get some good names in there.
Yeah.
Pliskova I was not expecting.
I don't know. I'm not going to lie. Do not know where that came from, but I'll take it. I will take it. Listeners, let us know how you did in Path of the Courts. Did you do the same as me? Did you do better than me? We would love to know. Just let us know at Tennis Weekly HQ. We're going to be moving on now to the mailbag. And we had a nice email from Saif Shaheen. And their mailbag was this. Tennis players often respond to criticism from fans and even pundits by telling them to shut up because they never played the game. I find this surprising. Don't tennis players criticize movies they didn't like despite not being filmmakers themselves, or complain about traffic without any personal experience of town planning? I know criticism can be malicious, especially online, and players should call it out as such, but questioning fans' right to criticize because they haven't played professional tennis while making millions from endorsements that you got because of your popularity amongst the same fans sounds lame to me. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, that is a tasty question, isn't it? Well, I mean, I did say I wasn't a big fan of Conclave, and I'm definitely not a film buff or film expert over here. So I do think that's quite an interesting analogy because we are not obviously tennis players who compete on the ATP tour. And Kim does not compete on the WTA tour either. So you could say, therefore, we shouldn't have an opinion when it comes to some of these things. But Venus Williams did say very famously when she talked about her sort of disdain for journalists. She said that no one, the way she handles the criticism is that she just knows that no one has achieved what she has and no one can light a candle to her in that room. And I think there are ways that you can talk about it, ways that you can handle it and process it yourself. I think Zverev maybe could also do with a lesson from Venus there without having to discredit someone's opinion or their experience of what they might know. Because not all coaches were fantastic tennis players. There's also something I think about. Some pundits maybe didn't necessarily, make it to the big time. But neither did some coaches who might actually be in the box with the people who the tennis players are criticizing. So I think, I'm not a town planning expert, but I do criticize a roundabout layout. So I think probably I need this to come around on our side, Joel, that it's okay.
Yes, that is great. And that's why I think platforms like podcasts are so good, because it allows people to have a voice, and it allows, I think, to have a more holistic kind of like viewpoint, and it has all of these different kind of perspectives on. And with fans, like we watch a lot of tennis. There is so much tennis to watch across the year, and it's hard not, I guess, to have opinions and kind of, seeing that on the TV. So I feel like we are, we have right, and there's like almost a credibility there from, the investment that we put in.
And as lovers of the game and lovers of the sport, and I think that's what they say in terms of the fan side of things, because all of the success and all the deals that you have, so much success happens off the court now, and your marketability as well. So I think you do want to win people onto your side, and I think you should value those people. And I think constructive criticism is actually something that is, very beneficial. I think at times, maybe some things we've said previously might not always be the most constructive. I think with Iga Swiatek last week, I think a lot of what we're saying, she actually said herself in press this week. And she said, don't believe everything you read. And I think that is a case that, some people will write stories about you, but at the same time, if they're not writing stories about you, Emma Raducanu said, that's when you've got a problem. because that's when some of the deals and some of the popularity does fade. So
and these fans are your core as well. Like they're your advocates at the end of the day. And when
maybe they know things, right?
Yeah, and maybe if you're a tennis player and it's not going too well, I know a lot of kind of social discourse can be negative, and some players switch it off. But I also think there's an aspect of a community there that can be comforting or be positive, and can get you kind of excited and motivated. So I do think it's a big part of it. I just think it's tricky because it's a balance, and there is always negative with the positive, and you'd love to kind of just filter it out, and it's hard to get that filter nowadays.
Yeah, and we really value all of our listeners' opinions when it comes to this, and I think we don't say you don't do this for a living, you don't know what you're talking about. That would be so strange to say you don't have an opinion. I think it obviously crosses the line when it gets into hate, and we don't support that in any way, and there is so much hate that happens. So I think criticism can sometimes feel like it's such a big thing, but it can also fire you up. Coco Gauff said that was the fire that took her to the US Open triumph, and one for the haters. So use it in a positive way, and if you are going to kind of disparage people for having an opinion just because it's not positive about you, well, maybe you need some more opinions, because a lot of these people probably have slightly too big egos anyway. So all criticism welcome, as long as it's constructive, right, Joel?
Indeed. Thank you, Sai, for your question. Listeners, if you've got a question for the mailbag, make sure to get in touch with us on social media, or you can write us in an email as well.
We'd love big episode as well coming up. A big mailbag
episode coming up as well. We've got our 500th episode coming up, which will be our next catch-up, I believe. I've done the math. We're on 498 at the moment. We do have a special episode 499, which we'll be talking about at the end. But let's move into some talking points. And Chris, we've got a couple of talking points this week. The first one is to do with the PTPA, our favorite player union, the Novak Djokovic-backed PTPA. Back again. We were speaking about them a few weeks ago, about kind of a legal challenge that they had put to all the tennis governing bodies on behalf of the players. Allegedly on behalf of the players. And we had some news this week that they have been partially successful versus the ATP. So I was kind of reading to understand, okay, what were they partially successful about? But they sought a court order preventing the ATP from engaging in improper, coercive or threatening communications with players on the matter. And in Wednesday's ruling in New York, the judge Margaret Garnett found the ATP's conduct to date, regardless of intent, could readily have been viewed as potentially coercive, deceptive, or otherwise abusive. And this is relating to two players that ATP officials sought to influence. And interestingly, they were named, and they were Alexander Zverev and American Ben Shelton, who, were found kind of basically kind of vulnerable to economic coercion, quote unquote, because tournaments they rely on to make a living are nearly exclusively organized by the tour. Yes. So Chris, what did you make of it? This sounds like a win for the PTPA, but I remember when we spoke about this originally, it felt like they just launched everything to see what stuck. Yeah. And maybe this is the first thing that has stuck.
I think that ATP have rather shot themselves in the foot here, is the way I would describe it, because
low-hanging fruit.
Well, the lawsuit at large had everything in it. It was the kitchen sink approach, and there was a lot that people didn't agree with, and that's why more people didn't sign it, because there was so much in that there were lots of things that you could agree with, but also things that you didn't want to put your name to. And I did not think that lawsuit would be particularly successful. But what the ATP did afterwards was trying to get people to come out and say, we're completely against this. And this is where the PTPA has been successful, because the ATP tried to get people to sign these sort of statements saying, that they had no knowledge of this and kind of discrediting the PTPA. And actually, it kind of just ladded up to what the PTPA was saying in their lawsuit, the wider lawsuit. So it's just kind of given them a bit of credence in this area, the fact that, they have been shown to be doing some,
and they tried to cover it up.
They did try to cover it up. So, I mean, the ATP has got a bit of, mud on their hands here. And I think that they will need to be more careful about how they go about handling these things. And I think probably they should look at their PR team and the team involved in this, because they need to go, because it's just not acceptable that you would try and coerce someone or threaten someone into signing something, and you're supposed to be looking after them.
Yeah, and you just know anything the ATP do or slip up, the PTPA will be there to use potentially in their favor to.
I wonder how they identified them, Joel.
objectives.
The players,
Yeah.
did they come forward? Did someone tell Novak Djokovic?
Maybe.
And it's one of those things we're never going to find out who player 2 was with Max Purcell. But I mean, it does actually kind of add to the interest around this, because I think this is the first time where the ATP isn't able to kind of discredit the PTPA, because clearly they're the ones who've done something wrong here.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to see if there are any more successful challenges that come our way. This was against the men's side, so this was against the ATP. There are still, I guess, legal challenges going on with all the other governing bodies. So we'll just have to see. But little victory there for the PTPA, even if it maybe sounds like the ATP shot themselves in the foot first of all. Right, let's move on. Billie Jean King Cup, our favouritely worded event,
tongue twister.
Tongue twister in the tennis world. The finals draw has been unveiled. This is taking place in Shenzhen in September.
We're off to China, are we, Joel?
We're off to China. I didn't realise Great Britain are seeded 2. Not that seeds really mean anything, I think, in this draw. But the 8 final nations are in and going to duke it out in a knockout tournament, starting in the quarterfinals, which have been unveiled today. And they are as follows: Italy, China, Spain, Ukraine in the top half, and then Kazakhstan, USA, Japan, Great Britain in the bottom half. What do you make of that, Chris?
Oh, it's very tasty. I think you'd have to hope that a few Japanese players didn't show up, because then we've got a very good chance of progressing. I think we've got a strong team. I mean, who's to say who'll be in that team? I think we suffer a little bit in the doubles, don't we?
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because at the moment, I think actually if Raducanu had defeated Coco Gauff today, she would have been the British number 1.
It's very close, isn't it?
I mean, who just kind of doing a bit of crystal balling, if everyone was fit and available, who do you think would be the GB number 1 come the end of the season? Do you think it will be Katie Boulter? Do you think it will be Emma Raducanu, Sonny Cartel as a wild card?
It'll be Raducanu and Boulter in singles, and I think it will be a reverse of last year with Raducanu at 1, Boulter at 2, and I think probably it'd be a bit better if it was the other way around, because I think Raducanu is a very, very good number 2, and Katie Boulter does love a big stage and the chance of a big upset. So I think it's a great draw for us. I think it's going to be a great event. China are there. I think they love the tennis over there, and I think might be tempted by a trip. What is that, September, Joel?
It is. Do you know what? It's sort of tempting, isn't it? I do love these big events where there's so much tennis and so much content for us to get our hands on in a very short space of time, because they normally have like the day session and then the evening session.
No sleep, just
no
tennis.
sleep. Each session has 3 matches. Well, it could have 3 matches.
It does go
each.
late, doesn't it? Yeah,
it can go late. So who knows? Maybe we'll have to talk to Kim, see what happens. But intriguing draw. We'll have to see. But yeah, Great Britain with a good draw, I sense there. Right, let's look at week 2 of the Italian Open. We are coming into the business end. We're reaching kind of quarterfinal stage for the ladies, and we've got some we're in round 4 as well for the men. I always get confused with these. What is on what day? But Chris, let's look at some of the action first of all for tomorrow. We don't have an order of play yet, but we do know the matches that will take place. We've got Tommy Paul, Alex de Minaur, Hubert Hurkacz versus Jakub Mensik, Jannik Sinner versus Cerundolo, Draper Mute, conqueror of Holger Rune, Musetti Medvedev, Kachanov Alcaraz, one of your favourites, Fils versus Zverev. They've had
played quite a lot, and Fils has done really well there.
Yep.
So a good lineup.
We've also got some women's quarterfinals. We've got Gauff Andreeva. That could be very tasty. Stearns Svitolina. That also could be very tasty. And Paulini Schneider. I've actually just got goosebumps just reading some of those matches off.
Oh, goodness, Joel. I mean, I've actually got goosebumps because we actually didn't get all of these things wrong. I think all of our winners are still in at this stage. and potentially all of our finalists. That's
Ooh.
never happened. Surely that's never happened. But I mean, some great clashes coming up. I think that it'd be particularly interesting to see how the Italians do. I think it's great to see Paolini's back in form. Massetti is doing some magic things on a tennis court right now. He's got Medvedev. That will be very exciting. But what a draw for Jack Draper to play Mute in the round of 16 on clay.
After 3 hours, 40 minutes as well.
What a draw.
On the tennis court. Very, very good draw. Have you got anywhere on upset alert? Feast Zverev?
I mean, is that an upset would be my question. If you ask Zverev, I mean, he would probably have a go at me for that question.
What about Cerundolo Sinner?
I think it might go to 3. But I think it will be Sinner that comes through pretty comfortably in the end. Okay. What are you thinking?
I think Cerundolo might win that.
I really,
and I don't think it will be. I don't think it will be like. Oh my God, Sinner, World No.1. Maybe that's how it will come across. But I just think Cerundolo is playing very good tennis at the moment.
You're a big fan of it at the moment.
I do have to say this because in our clay season preview. Clay swing preview. I did name check him as a player to watch out for. So
this could be your crowning moment in predictions. We'll have to see. But I mean, a great lineup either way, and none of us did predict Swiatek. So I think the form book is being followed here in Rome.
Yeah, and Gauff and Draper as well. That's possibly one of the most intriguing matchups on the court tomorrow because they're both in very good form. I mean, and Draper
wasn't great in Madrid though, was it? That one, I think didn't quite hit the heights. Yeah, but we can see.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, and Draper, sort of interested because she defeated Torsen earlier, and that was the final from Doha earlier in the season, I think.
Well, she got some revenge there then, which will be very nice for her in that respect.
But we're going to wrap it up there. Before we finish, though, we do have a special episode coming out on Thursday, a special book club edition of the pod with myself and Kim. We're going to be chatting with former New York Times tennis correspondent Christopher Clary about his new book, The Warrior, Rafael Nadal and His Kingdom of Clay, which comes out later in this week. We've been really looking forward to this. We had Chris on the podcast for his Roger Federer book, The Master, The Brilliant Career of Roger Federer. I'm looking at it right now.
I thought you meant me. I was like, I haven't written a book, Joel. I'm on the podcast right now. But yes. Kim has absolutely loved that book. Yes. So if you're a Rafa fan, that's one to definitely listen to. I look forward to listening to it myself, Joel, and finding out a few things that I didn't know that maybe might help us when it comes to par for the courts in the future.
And we're also going to be running a competition for to win a copy of the book, so do look out for that on our social channels.
Signed by Kim, can it be?
Oh well, maybe. But do look out for that later in the week as well on our social channels. We're going to be announcing it on that very special podcast, so look out for that episode on Thursday. But that does wrap it up for our week 1 Italian Open catch-up here at Tennis Weekly HQ. We hope you've enjoyed the ride with us. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of ATP and WTA action. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favorite podcasting platforms out there. And if you love what you're hearing, then be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube.
And stay connected on all social media, and we will be announcing that competition on social media. That's how you will be entering to get a chance to get your hands on the book. That will be across all of our channels, Facebook, Instagram, as well as you can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, X, and Threads. We're everywhere, Joel.
We're everywhere.
We are. And you can also submit a question to our mailbag. Do you have a 500th episode mailbag for us? What do you have as a burning question that we can kind of answer to mark the milestone? Do drop us an email if you have something. That's tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or visit our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we'll be back next week for another talk catch up brought to you by Sports Travel and Hospitality Group. But until then, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.